You want to create a stunning website? I've already done it with Wix. Let me show you how it's done. I mean, I'm gonna need to put these. I can't see without them. Just go to Wix.com. There are loads of absurdly gorgeous templates to choose from. Guys, this could take a while. First things first, I can change the text. Okay, now for my favorite part. Right here, you can do whatever you want. No rules. I'm just gonna go and say it. I look amazing here. I mean, I'm scrolling. There's no end. It's me all the way down. And you can see my Instagram feed on here. Look, someone had to save the day, guys. Pictures are nice, but you can show even more with the video. And if you've got a whole lot of videos, you can do this, you can do that, or even this. Check it out, guys. I don't think that looks half bad. You know what? It does all start with a stunning website.
Go to Wix.com to create your stunning website today. When you open a free checking account, you expect it to be, well, free. But then you take a closer look and find hidden ATM fees, monthly service charges, and minimum balance requirements bolted in. Suddenly you realize that your free checking account is something different altogether. At Northwest, free means free with no hidden monthly fees. And now, you can get up to $200 when you become a My Northwest checking customer with qualifying direct deposits. Apply today at Northwest.com. Northwest Bank is member FDIC.
Huge story about the NFL and people not standing for the anthem. Donald Trump's very angry. He thinks people should be fired. He started a firestorm about that on Friday night that has raged throughout the weekend. Now, would you like to know the real story of how we wound up having people stand for the national anthem in the NFL in the first place? Now, this story does not go back a very long time in history. It's not like the players were standing for the national anthem throughout. Did you know that? It's not like, oh, the NFL, that's always what happens. The players come out, we do the national anthem, they stand, and that is an American tradition. No, it started very recently. We go to Law News here that explains this story. Before 2009, football players standing for the national anthem wasn't even a thing. The team stayed in the locker room until after and the home of the brave, of course, until the anthem was over, and then ran onto the field. So what the Steelers did this weekend, and eventually the Seahawks and the Titans, was what every team did pre-2009. So this is a new thing. So all that talk of like, oh, this is tradition in America, and if you respect America, then this is when you come out of the locker room, and this is how you stand, and this is where you put your hands. Yeah, I know, America's all about dictating how people should stand, and what body motions they should have, and where they should be, etc. So it turns out it's all a myth. So why did it start later anyway? This is the really interesting part. Turns out that from 2011 to 2014, the Department of Defense spent $5.4 million in contracts with 14 NFL teams for flag ceremonies. The National Guard got in on the action too and gave $6.7 million to the NFL for the same kind of thing from 2013 to 2015. This is what is otherwise known as paid propaganda. Now, look, they I'm sure had good intentions when they did it. Their intention is, well, we'd like more people to sign up for the National Guard, for the Department of Defense. We need more recruits, a volunteer army. So let's pay for some marketing if you want to take a positive spin on it, propaganda if you want to take a negative spin on it, and make it a new tradition that we all salute the flag and do the national anthem and make sure the players are on the field and everybody's paying heed to our soldiers. And then if you remember, of course, when Kaepernick took a knee, it had nothing to do with the military. He said it was because of the racial injustice that the police, unfortunately, were doing throughout the country. But people immediately spun it as, oh, you must hate the veterans, you must hate the military. Well, all this started in the first place because the military apparently was paying for this propaganda. And yes, I do take a negative spin on it, because this is not what we should spend taxpayer dollars for. If you're patriotic, wonderful, but I don't want the Defense Department spending our dollars to try to make other people patriotic, so they sign up for wars and serve the Pentagon's purposes. So, more details on this. The Senate Oversight Committee said, unfortunately, and they investigated this, they said, unfortunately, contrary to the public statements made by the Department of Defense and the NFL, the majority of the contracts, 72 of the 122 contracts we analyzed, clearly show that the Department of Defense paid for patriotic tributes at professional football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and soccer games. These paid tributes included an on-the-field color guard, enlistment and re-enlistment ceremonies, performances of the national anthem, full field flag details, ceremonial first pitches, and puck drops. So look, the national anthem happened in the games before, but like we said, the players were in the locker room at the time. You would of course have a first pitch and you drop the puck anyway, but they wrapped all of it in the flag. It was all an effort to recruit more people to sign up for the military. So this was propaganda from the beginning and had nothing to do with American tradition. In fact, not just me saying that. Back in 2015, Republican Senator John McCain called this, quote, paid patriotism. And he went on to say that the charades conducted not out of a sense of patriotism, but rather done for profit in the form of millions in taxpayer dollars going from the Department of Defense to wealthy pro-sports franchises. And he came out strongly against it, and that is how all of this began in the first place. Know the reality, know the truth, and that right there is what this is actually about. If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.
A lot's changed in 125 years, but the strength of the students of Strayer University and our dedication to their success have always remained. So to all who seek their true potential, we say, let's get it, America.
So you all know the Golden State Warriors won the NBA championship last year, and normally when you win the championship in a sport, you go to the White House and celebrate. Well, now you got Donald Trump in the White House, and some people are a little concerned about that. So Steph Curry, now that their season is beginning, said, I don't know why he feels, referring to Donald Trump, the need to target certain individuals rather than others. I have an idea of why, but it's kind of beneath the leader of a country to go that route. It's not what leaders do. Now, first of all, that is enough right there for Donald Trump to have his very thin skin pierced and have him go ballistic. But Steph Curry went a little bit further. He said, on Friday at the team's annual media day, ahead of the start of training camp, Curry said the Warriors had not decided as a team whether they would visit the White House and that they planned to talk about it at a meeting. But Curry said that if it were up to him, he would not go. So that's what the New York Times was reporting. So now, how do you think Donald Trump's going to react to that? Well, don't worry. He did tweet on it. Doesn't disappoint. He said, go to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Steph Curry is hesitating. Therefore, invitation is withdrawn. World's biggest goofball. I don't want you to come anyway. I'm going to take my ball and go home. I know that I keep calling him a third grader. I really feel like I'm beginning to insult third graders. This is what like a really bratty, snobby, annoying third grader does. Steve Kerr is the coach of the championship Warriors, and he said, oh, he was going to break up with us before we could break up with him. Okay. Then Bob Myers, who's the general manager for the Golden State Warriors, said, we encourage our players to speak their minds. Steph Curry said, we're not going to try to divide and separate this country. We're trying to bring everyone together and speak about love and togetherness and equality. So now Donald Trump's got the general managers of basketball teams against them, let alone of football teams, which are now almost all united against him. Then we go back to Steve Kerr for a devastating line. He says, how about the irony of free speech is fine if you're a neo-Nazi chanting hate slogans, but free speech is not allowed to kneel in protest. No matter how many times a football player says, I honor our military, but I'm protesting police brutality and racial inequality, it doesn't matter. Nationalists are saying you're disrespecting our flag. Well, you know what else is disrespectful to our flag? Racism. And one's way worse than the other. Steve Kerr, if you don't follow basketball, is white. He is the coach of the Warriors, and he has gone to the White House many times because he is a champion through and through. He was a champion as a player, he's a champion as a coach, and apparently a champion as a person, saying, look, I fight inequality wherever I see it as well. So the Warriors not going to the White House, and as usual, Trump has made things worse, and now not only has he turned almost the entire NFL against him, the NBA has begun to turn against them in unison as well. That brings us to King James. LeBron James says about Trump, quote, you bum. Steph Curry already said he ain't going, so therefore ain't no invite. Going to White House was a great honor until you showed up. Damn! Shots fired. One more from LeBron James. He says, that guy continues to try to divide us as people. And like I said, on one of my social media platforms a couple of days ago, the thing that kind of frustrated me and pissed me off is the fact that he's used sports platform to try to divide us. We have to figure out a way how we can come together and be as great as we can be as a people, because the people run this country, not one individual, and damn sure not him. All right. So, congratulations, Donald Trump. Now the NBA hates you too. Help us build independent media together. Come join us. tytnetwork.com/join.
In 12 feet, come to a complete stop. Recalculating. In 1 mile, arrive at a place where you make your own lane, only to discover it has traffic jams too. Your all-new compass.
Now, you know what Trump said about the NFL? He said, wouldn't you love to see any of these NFL owners or somebody disrespects our flag to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now. He's fired, right? Well, apparently owners in NASCAR were asked about this, and some of them decided to be very conservative, but hold, because there's lots of twists and turns in this story, which makes sense, lots of turns in NASCAR. All right. Okay. So now we go to the Hill. Former NASCAR champion Richard Petty told the Associated Press that any member of his team would be fired if they chose to protest the national anthem. Petty now owns Richard Petty Motorsports. So he's joining Trump and saying, yes, if you do something I don't agree with politically and you speak your mind, I'll fire you. Now, he does have the right to do that because he's not the government. Trump pressuring people to do that as the government, as the leader of the government, unfortunately, is a First Amendment issue. Whether he takes action is a separate story. Trump. Petty can do this. I don't know if it's advisable, but he can. Petty said, quote, anybody that don't stand up for the anthem ought to be out of the country, period. What got them where they're at? The United States. And a couple other things. And their parents and their community and their friends. And their ability to drive a car, apparently. So Petty's on one side, I got it. And by the way, he's got his, right to his opinion too. If I don't want him to fire anybody over it, but if during the anthem he wanted to do jumping jacks and shout for joy and play, okay, have at it, Hoss. Okay, that's your right. Now we go to another owner, Richard Childress, a former driver who owns Richard Childress Racing, said any protest from his team members would get you a ride on a Greyhound bus. So second owner threatening to fire people over it. Trump must be happy, and he is. He tweets, so proud of NASCAR and its supporters and fans, they won't put up with disrespecting our country or our flag. They said it loud and clear. Now hold, we're going to get to that in a second. But first, I want to give credit to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Not everybody in NASCAR agrees Earnhardt put out a great statement. He said, all Americans are granted rights to peaceful protests. And then he quoted JFK saying, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Damn, look at Dale Earnhardt Jr. Okay, that's a wonderful ode, not to being progressive. I don't know what his personal politics are, but to this country, saying that's the whole point of America. That's why we got a national anthem in the first place, because we have the right and the freedom to do what we want during the national anthem. You missed the whole point of the country. So bless his heart on that. Then NASCAR had to put out a statement that basically splits the baby. And it was artfully done. Here, let me read it to you. They said, sports are a unifying influence in our society, bringing people of differing backgrounds and beliefs together. Our respect for the national anthem has always been a hallmark of our pre-race events. Thanks to the sacrifices of many, we live in a country of unparalleled freedoms and countless liberties, including the right to peacefully express one's opinion. So, in other words, national anthem is awesome, respect the flag, respect the troops, but part of respecting it is respecting other people's right to speak out. You know what? I'll take it. They kind of played to both sides, but that's all right. God bless. They emphasize the right to speak out, so that's a good thing. But Jamil Hill, who's, of course, on ESPN and covers sports, she tweeted, now I think that this might have been before the NASCAR statement, but she wrote, but that Confederate flag is welcome anytime at NASCAR races. Hashtag the irony. So we did look around, and it turns out, oh yeah, Confederate flag is often flown at NASCAR races. To be fair, so is the pirate flag. Okay, there's a Trump flag, a Confederate flag, and an American flag all at once. And then now these are pictures from 2015. And that's very relevant, and I'll tell you why. Because in 2015, NASCAR tried to do the right thing. So credit where credit is due, be fair and honest to everybody, okay? So you might not agree with some of the NASCAR owners. But in 2015, NASCAR said, please stop bringing Confederate flags to the races. It's not a good look. You know what their fans did? Screw off. They brought even more Confederate flags. And that effort, that was a well-intentioned effort by NASCAR, failed. But there's a twist to that. They said, if you want to, bring in your Confederate flag and we'll give you an American flag instead. Because I don't know if these folks remember that, but the Confederates did a revolution against America. So they rebelled against America, they committed treason against America. So NASCAR said, why don't we give you our flag instead? I mean, look at the irony of that. To salute a flag that not only did not respect America, our national anthem and our flag, but actually declared war against it. Nothing could be more disrespectful to the American flag than bringing and waving a Confederate flag. They went to war against us. They tried to rip this country apart. Luckily, they lost. And when NASCAR said, we'll give you an American flag instead, a lot of the fans said, no thank you, we'd rather keep the Confederate flag. Again, don't judge all NASCAR fans. They didn't all do that. Some portion of them did that, and there are plenty of pictures and videos from those races in 2015 to prove that. So it is an interesting point by Jamil Hill. Point very well taken. But unfortunately, because of Trump, everybody's divided now, and there's no uniform opinion of NASCAR. Unfortunately, they too are divided. Here's an idea. Why don't we rally around, yes, the American flag, but more importantly, what the American flag stands for. It stands for freedom, and that includes the freedom of speech and the freedom to speak out to make America better. And yes, that includes making our government and our policing better. If you say we should not speak out against the police, which are part of our government, to make them better, then you did not understand this country at all, and you don't respect us, our flag, or our anthem. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.
USA to me means peace of mind. You had a power outage for 5 days total. USAA to replace Deb Story. We really appreciate that. With the Weber family, we're USAA members for life.
Huge protest over the weekend about the national anthem. Donald Trump said that anyone who took a knee should be fired. Well, the Steelers decided they were going to act in unison and not come out for the national anthem at all. Mike Tomlin, their coach, put out a statement ahead of time. He says, we're football players, we're football coaches, we're not participating in the anthem today, not to be disrespectful to the anthem, but to remove ourselves from the circumstance. People shouldn't have to choose. If a guy wants to go about his normal business and participate in the anthem, he shouldn't have to be forced to choose sides. If a guy feels the need to do something, he shouldn't be separated from his teammate who chooses not to, so we're not participating today. So they were the first team to not go out for the anthem at all, which makes me incredibly proud because I'm a Steelers fan, and the Steelers have a history of being the most progressive organization in not just football, but in all of sports. Their owner won them in a poker game. I'm not kidding. He won enough money. This was, of course, a long time ago. And he was always with his own players. And in fact, when the players went on strike, he drove the other owners crazy by going out on the picket line and bringing the players beers. And they drink together on the picket line. That was the owner of the Steelers. The Rooneys have a tremendous history of progressivism, and they're in fact, have a rule named the Rooney Rule in the NFL because they demanded that an African American at least be interviewed, not picked, but interviewed for the job of head coach. Anytime you're interviewing for a head coach in the NFL, that's called the Rooney Rule. And now again, they're leading the way here. Look, some saying it's a half measure, it's not good enough. I hear you, but look, let people express themselves in every way that they feel comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, yes, I completely agree with and have always supported Colin Kaepernick's taking a knee and a stand for racial justice, and pointing out that is a huge issue in this country and needs to be addressed, and using that platform for it. But I'm also in favor of expressing speech in any way that you think is right. So if we don't want people judging Kaepernick for it, certainly don't judge the Steelers. If you're on either side of this issue, I actually think it took great courage to be the first team to do that. Tennessee and Seattle later in the day also did not come out of the locker room. And of course, these protests spread throughout the NFL. But I want to point out one other guy from the Steelers who actually did come out. He was the only guy to come out, and he's a former Army Ranger. Let's show you what happened here. This is left tackle Alejandro Villanueva. And he served in the Army for all those years, and he came out and did the anthem anyway. Now, some folks are getting on him, saying, well, he broke ranks with all of his other teammates, and he ruined unity. No, but guys, it's also the argument that was used against Kaepernick in some ways. Let people express themselves however they feel comfortable. It's also his freedom of speech, so I don't mind him doing that. The issue has gotten great attention now, thanks to Kaepernick, and thanks to Donald Trump, unwittingly so on his part. So bless his heart for doing that. Both Kaepernick and Villanova. I knew I should have tried it a second time. Anyway, and obviously he has unquestioned patriotism, and I think both do. One last thing, and then people said, "Oh yeah, but did you know that the Steelers were booed when they finally came out?" It's true. Let's watch. Yeah, that is breaking news indeed. When the opposing team comes out of the locker room, turns out they get booed. Of course, they were playing in Chicago. You know, the Chicago players also did the protest. They weren't in the locker room, but they did the protest on the field. People have no idea what they're talking about in sports. All right. God bless the Steelers, progressive champions, as always. TYT membership gets you commercial-free Young Turks. Download it, stream it, podcast it, get all the network shows, and support independent media. TYTnetwork.com/join. Sad story about John McCain. You all know he's got cancer now. He went on 60 Minutes, talked to Leslie Stahl, and he let us in on how bad it is, and it turns out it's pretty bad. Let's show you.
It's very serious. The prognosis is very, very serious. Some say 3%, some say 14%. It's a very poor prognosis. So I just said, I understand. Now we're going to do what we can, get the best doctors we can find, and do the best we can. And at the same time, celebrate with gratitude a life well lived.
Now, throughout the years, I've had a lot of disagreements with John McCain. I've also from time to time, had some agreements with him, not only recently on his vote on healthcare, but he was actually the very last Republican I ever voted for. In the 2000 primaries, I voted for John McCain over George W. Bush, and then in the general election, I voted for Al Gore, first Democrat I ever voted for, because I watched the debates, and I thought one guy is way smarter than the other guy, and there's an important decision. But in the primaries, I had voted for McCain, and since then, his stance on war, I just think is deplorable. But having said that, you watch that video, man. If you're human, it's hard not to have great sympathy, empathy for him, his family, and boy, if this is indeed his last tour duty, he is taking it like a champ, and I couldn't imagine handling it any better. That's amazing. So now, of course, we're still in the field of politics, so he is going to get asked about Donald Trump. Let's watch that.
Did he ever apologize for saying you're not a hero?
No. I also understand that we're very different people, different upbringing, different life experiences.
What do you mean by that, and what does it make you think about?
He is in the business of making money, and he has been successful both on television as well as America and others. I was raised in a military family. I was raised in the concept and belief that duty, honor, country is the lodestar for the behavior that we have to exhibit every single day.
Those were nice shots of Trump. I was raised to believe in duty, honor, etc., country. And he's a businessman that did the Miss USA pageant or something. Look, he didn't put it as maybe spitefully as I might have, or with more salt in the wounds, but that was shots fired, and it was nicely done. They also asked him about, hey, what do you make of his statements in regards to all these different political matters at hand today? And he said, quote, he changes his statements almost on a daily basis, so for me to spend my time trying to analyze what he says, I don't know. In other words, he is, as we have told you over and over, and now there's a Republican senator saying it, a pathological liar. Now, he didn't say that exact quote, but I just read you his quote, and you can see that's exactly the direction that he's going in. Changes his statements on a daily basis. He has no principles. He has no actual ideology, Trump. All he has is political expedience and what's good for Donald Trump. And so now, freed from the donors, freed from the daily pressure of politics, John McCain speaking truth to power there, in a sense. By the way, he was also very, very gracious, saying, look, he's the president of the United States, and I believe in our democracy, and the American people chose him, so that's that. And so I don't begrudge that. That's how this system works. It's just that, he just personally doesn't believe him, and thinks that, he's structured a little differently than John McCain, but he is the president, and of course that's true. Now, this would be a normal way for almost anybody on the political spectrum to handle John McCain in that interview, and what's obviously a very sad moment here as he believes that he has very little chance of recovery. But that's not how some Republicans are going to handle it. So we're told from time to time that progressives are uncivil. All right, so let's go to an actual example of lack of civility. That's Louis Gohmert. He's going to go on Fox and Friends and say something wild and outrageous.
Nothing inhibits recovery from cancer like stress. I think the Arizona could help him and us, recall him, let him, fight successfully this terrible cancer, and let's get somebody in here who will keep the word he gave last year.
Wait, did you say he should resign or step down and take care of his health? Or did you say that Arizona should recall him? Like remove him from office? Did I hear that right? Even Steve Ducey shared my surprise at that. Here, watch.
Say that again. What are you suggesting? He be recalled?
I think it would be very helpful
because
to him and the country. He's got cancer. It's a tough battle. But stress is a real inhibitor toward getting over cancer. So let him go back, deal with the cancer, let Arizona recall him so that we can get somebody that will keep his word from last year.
Wow! Wow! What an unbelievable break. He's saying the very last thing that should happen to John McCain is to have the voters of Arizona disgrace him by recalling him from office. And it's not because, hey, stress and and I want him to get better. No, he said it would help him and us. And he said put someone in office who would keep his promise from last year. Meaning, no, I want him recalled because he voted the wrong way on health care. He's having healthcare issues. I obviously, as you can tell here, don't care about that at all. And I also don't care about your healthcare. And I hope that, as Louis Gohmert voted in the House, to strip away healthcare from tens of millions of Americans, approximately 23 million Americans or so. And saying, hey, and if John McCain's not going to take away other people's healthcare, Arizona should recall him. Wow. He did everything but say good riddance. Okay, well, now you know where Louis Gohmert and some faction of the right-wing Republican Party stands. Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join. Now, I was told during the last presidential election that using a private email account is horrific offense for anyone associated with the government. I mean, it's such a bad offense that you should be locked up. I believe I heard chants to that effect regarding Hillary Clinton, which is why this story seems a little surprising. Politico reporting that presidential son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner has corresponded with other administration officials about White House matters through a private email account set up during the transition last December, part of a larger pattern of Trump aides using personal email accounts for government business. What? Oh, well, okay, hey, man, look, this wasn't my chant, it was your chant, but let's go for it. Lock him up. Lock him up. Because I didn't think it was a federal offense. Trump people told us it was a federal offense. They chanted it, right? Okay, let's give you more details. Now, if this was an account that he's had with AOL for quite some time, his mom emailed him on there, and he said, yeah, I'll be over for Thanksgiving or whatever. Okay, maybe that's a different situation, but it sounded like he was doing official government business. And what was interesting to me is that it was not an old account. Now, let's give you more details. See, we'll go to Politico. Kushner uses his private account alongside his official White House email account, sometimes trading emails with senior White House officials, outside advisors, and others about media coverage, event planning, and other subjects, according to 4 people familiar with the correspondence. Politico has seen and verified about 24 emails. So definitely doing government business. No question about that. Let's keep going. Kushner and his wife, Ivanka Trump, set up their private family domain late last year before moving to Washington from New York, according to people with knowledge of events, as well as publicly available internet registration records. At the time, Kushner, who served as senior campaign advisor, was familiar with the correspondence, was expected to be named to a White House role, while Ivanka Trump was publicly saying she didn't plan to work in her father's administration. Now, of course, she later did take a role in the administration. So, wait, now that's different. So they set up these accounts knowing they were going to the White House. It was after the election and before they went into the White House. It looks like it was set up for the purpose of having communications that they wouldn't have to report because because of our laws in America, if you're doing official government business, all that is recorded and kept for history. Now, those are not shared unless they're leaked, but they're not supposed to be, and your private emails can get leaked too. But legally, they are not to be shared publicly right now at all, but they must be kept for our records, for government records. You work for us, you're part of the government. So they set up a new email account, kind of like Hillary Clinton set up a private email server, specifically to have private emails that could not be traced by the government. Now, one was a server, this one is an email account. There is a slight difference there. Now, of course, there is an important issue of the classified document. So let's go to his defense on this. Politico says there is no indication that Kushner has shared any sensitive or classified material on his private account, or that he relies on his private email account more than his official White House account to conduct government business. So, look, in reality, huge distinction, and we don't know that there wasn't any classified information on there. And remember, that's what started the Hillary Clinton investigation. They didn't know that she had shared classified information either. They started the investigation and then found out that that might have happened. Now, none of the things that she did apparently was bad enough that she purposely shared classified information in a way that it could get out. So that's why she was not charged. So whether it's classified or not is relevant, but an investigation was started on her to find out, an argument could be made to start an investigation on Kushner to find out if he has shared classified information, because we now know for a fact, because Politico has actually seen the emails, that he is sharing and having conversations about official government work on his private email account. Again, it wasn't us who said that that was a massive crime. It was the Trump team that said it was a massive crime. Okay. Lowell, who is his attorney, said Kushner has adhered to government record-keeping requirements by forwarding all the emails to his account, though Politico could not verify that. Hey, listen, you say that he's putting those emails into his government account too. First of all, I don't believe that for a second. There's no way that you bothered to set up a private email account so you could have untraceable emails, and then reported them anyway and just transferred them over to your government account so that they could be traced. But hey, listen, that's okay. I don't need to decide that. The FBI can decide that. They should have an equal and opposite investigation, just like they did of Hillary Clinton. And just like the Trump team, we could turn around and say, well, even before the decision comes in by the FBI, in their case, it was even after the decision came in by the FBI to not prosecute, saying it was not illegal, they chanted anyway. So, lock him up, lock him up. Okay, wait, one last thing. But, I mean, was it like, hey, guys, what are we going to have, a lunch? Or maybe it was with his, interns. Not at all important. Did it involve senior White House officials? Let's find out. Aides who have exchanged emails with Kushner on his private account since President Donald Trump took office in January include former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, former Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn, a spokesman Josh Raffel, according to emails described to or shown to Politico. In some cases, those White House officials have emailed Kushner's account first, said people familiar with the messages. At times, Bannon and Priebus have also used private email accounts to correspond with Kushner and others. Oh, great. So that's Kushner, Trump, Bannon, Priebus. So let me change the chant real quick. Lock them up. Lock them up. Hey, listen, man, we didn't ask for you guys to start a chant about locking people up who use private email accounts on the government. You did, so I guess it equals just as well to you. Hey, maybe another special counsel or the FBI get to work, investigate these guys to see if there was any classified information or anything else that they did illegally, including violating that Records Act. And then it's, I guess, handcuffs time. Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join.
I know when I hand them the cue. To their first car. It's going to be scary, but I also know that we're going to have USAA insurance for both my boys, and it's something that they're not even going to have to think of. It's just going to be in the family.
Anthony Weiner was a Democratic congressman who lost his seat, had to resign in shame because of reaching out to different women on Twitter and sending sexually explicit messages. Now, he was run out of Congress back in 2011, but then he made a comeback, and he was running for mayor of New York and was actually doing really well in the polls in 2013, until we found out he had done it again. And that time he had called himself Carlos Danger online. And he famously corresponded with Sydney Leathers. She turned over a lot of those messages, as a lot of the people that he sexted with. Is there a word for sexual messages on Twitter? Swittered with. Anyway, but he never learns the lesson. And then in 2016, he got busted again. Several different people, including an older woman that I say older because he got in trouble with an underage girl that I'm about to tell you about. And he had sent a picture to the other woman with his young son, who was a baby at the time, in the picture. Don't do that! He was showing off his abs, and the baby was next to him. So finally, Huma Abedin, who was top advisor for Hillary Clinton, I almost said fired him, divorced him, and they separated and then parted ways. And of course, it wound up famously affecting the 2016 election because they had a separate investigation on Anthony Weiner, criminal investigation, because he had sent sexually explicit messages to a 15-year-old, which is what I'm about to tell you, the conclusion of that story now. But because of some of those messages were on Huma Abedin's computer, they had to then reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation because they found out that there was all these messages, emails on Huma Abedin's computer the FBI had not checked yet. Now, later they checked them and found out there was nothing wrong, but by that time the damage had been done. And that was part of what had happened in 2016 to cause Hillary Clinton to lose. Of course, the other gigantic part was Hillary Clinton. Anyway, so if you don't remember the part about the 15-year-old, let me go to the Daily Mail investigation last year that gave the details. Anthony Weiner carried on a months-long online sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl, during which she claims he asked her to dress up in schoolgirl outfits for him on a video messaging application. And much worse. I mean, the details are pretty gory, and we don't need to rehash them because he is guilty, and I'm going to tell you about that in a sec. But at the time, a very important component was, did he know that she was 15? It's one thing if you think you're talking to a 38-year-old online, and it's just online. It's another thing if you know she's a 15-year-old. Well, Weiner was apparently aware that the girl was underage, according to the DailyMail.com. Interviews with the girl and her father, as well as a cache of online messages. So they had the messages, they did see them, they did show them, and eventually Weiner pled guilty. So, in fact, let me go to the New York Times now. That explains that Mr. Weiner, who pled guilty in May to one count of transferring obscene materials to a minor, and had faced up to 10 years in prison. Now, that's a long time. Of course, his lawyers asked for probation, saying, come on, he's part of the elite. Are you really going to send him to prison? Of course, that was not their technical defense, but in essence, he's a good, upstanding member of the community. He had a disease, he's fighting disease, etc. In fact, before the sentence was pronounced, the New York Times explains, Mr. Weiner did not so much ask for leniency, but tried to make a case that he had accepted responsibility for his crime and that he was a changed man. Now, of course, he in fact did want leniency, and his lawyers did ask for that, but that was a show of contrition. Oh my God, Your Honor, I've really learned. And he said, quote, I acted not only unlawfully, but immorally, and if I had done the right thing, I would not be standing before you today. So that's pretty clear. Well, so what did the judge say? Well, she said that she agreed with Mr. Weiner's lawyer's contention that he was finally receiving effective treatment for a disease of sexual compulsion, that he was engaging in sex addiction, therapy and was, don't get me wrong, he was not engaging in sex addiction again. He was engaging in sex addiction therapy and was making what she called, quote, an enormous contribution to others suffering from that disease. But, quote, the difficulty here is that this is a very strong compulsion. It was so strong, she added, that despite two very public disclosures and the destruction of his career on two occasions, he continued with the activity. That is certainly true. So she finally gave out his sentence. "21 months in prison." So, wow. Okay. So he is actually going to prison. Now, whenever anyone who was a politician or just generally a member of the elite, the establishment, etc., actually goes to prison, it is almost shocking because it's just not something that happens very often in America. We definitely have a two-tier justice system. But in this case, Anthony Weiner was definitely out of allies. No Republican or Democrat had any interest in him. No one in power had any interest in him. He was roundly derided by almost everyone in power and his former friends. And I guess once you're out of allies, prison is possible. 21 months, so obviously almost 2 years in prison for Anthony Weiner, which is amazing. And just a final description to this inglorious end of a career. New York Times says that after the hearing ended and Judge Cote had left the bench, Mr. Weiner remained seated between his lawyers, Arlo Devlin Brown and Aaron Monju, at the defense table, bent deeply forward in his chair, sobbing, his face in his hands. So look, there's a lot that can be said about this story, and this is the one story that I always point to of me being wrong. When the story first came out, I couldn't believe it. I thought, no way! What was previously thought to be a smart congressman was going to send penis pictures to women online. That's the craziest story I ever heard. And there was 1,000 false stories and allegations made up in the right-wing press earlier, not about him specifically, but overall. And so I said that I don't believe the story at all. Well, it turns out the story was true. I was wrong. And then he did it again and again and again. So, you know, and in the past I've made fun of sexual addiction because, I mean, we're guys, aren't we all sexually addicted? And that's a common cliched thing to say. But you find out with Anthony Weiner, no, it might be a real thing because he did this despite the fact that he thought it could hurt everyone around him, his family, his loved ones, and absolutely destroy his career, and he still couldn't help himself. So that's no excuse, and certainly the court system didn't find it to be an excuse. That's why he's going to prison. But it is interesting that it is a compulsion that drives some to absolute ruin, and that is apparently what has happened with Anthony Weiner. Watch The Young Turks commercial-free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.
In 12 feet, come to a complete stop. Recalculating. In 1 mile, arrive at a place where you make your own lane, only to discover it has traffic jams too. Your all-new Compass.
On Friday night, Donald Trump was giving a speech in Alabama. No one knows why. He just likes to go to rallies and have people cheer him. And he decided that he was going to take a swipe at NFL players. And boy, did that start a giant controversy, which wound up backfiring on Donald Trump in a wonderful way. I'm going to explain all the details for you guys, but first, let's hear on Trump.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired.
All right, so a whole bunch of things already from that small clip. First of all, my favorite thing is when he walks around the ring like he's a wrestler. And also, right, okay. And I know that his fans get into that too. I'm just amused at what a goofball he is. All right, second of all, then people say, oh, he called him son of a bitch. I don't care about that at all. Okay, he used vulgar language. I use vulgar language. I don't care. But I do know that it made other people defend those NFL players taking a knee like Colin Kaepernick and the others I'm going to show you. So it was poor strategy if it was intended to gain some degree of sympathy. And by the way, honesty and seriousness, the reason he was in Alabama was to rally for Luther Strange, who is running in a Republican primary. That's Trump's candidate. He's running against Steve Bannon's candidate, Roy Moore, and Strange is losing. So he'd gone down to rally his base. But when you're rallying folks, you're supposed to do things that excites people and gets them to vote for you by igniting this controversy. But look, other controversies have started in the past, but it's possible that you're being counterproductive. But he doesn't think those things through. But he has, in essence, there begun to attack the NFL and start an issue where it becomes First Amendment. It wasn't a First Amendment issue because the NFL is private and they can do whatever they want to their players. But when you have the government, i.e. the President of the United States, telling people, hey, you know what, you should take action and you should fire those guys, then it's the beginning of a First Amendment issue where the government is pressuring people to get fired if they say the wrong things. Okay, but he's got more.
And when the NFL ratings are down massively, the NFL ratings are down massively. Now, the number one reason happens to be that they like watching what's happening on, with your sport. They like what's happening.
It's unbearable, man. If he was making a serious political point, he then ruins it by going, the ratings are down, because the only thing that matters is ratings. It's because everybody's watching me. Yeah, that's because you're a train wreck, dude. Just like this story. All right, keep it going.
It's because, today if you hit too hard, right? They hit too hard, 15 yards, throw him out of the game. They had that last week. I watched for a couple of minutes. And two guys just really beautiful tackle. Boom, 15 yards. The referee gets on television. His wife is sitting at home. She's so proud of him. They're ruining the game. Right? They're ruining the game.
Yeah, in a recent study, they studied the brains of deceased NFL players. 110 out of 111 had significant brain damage. They're ruining the game. We were having fun with these gladiators who, smash into each other, and if they, hurt themselves even more, that was fun, and their wife was proud of them. They're ruining the game. But look, more importantly, he's now gone from, I don't like Colin Kaepernick now standing for the national anthem, to attacking the entire NFL. Bad idea, Jeans. Okay. Now you're going to get the whole NFL against you, and if you were trying to turn tables on him, as usual, you've turned tables on yourself. All right, one more.
You know what's hurting the game more than that? When people like yourselves turn on television and you see those people taking the knee when they're playing our great national anthem. The only thing you can do better is if you see it, even if it's one player, leave the stadium. I guarantee things will stop. Things will stop. Just pick up and leave. Pick up and leave.
A lot of the NFL owners are billionaires. They pretty much banned Kaepernick from the league. They don't say it outright, but none of them will sign him, even though he's clearly one of the top 96 quarterbacks in the world. Of course, one of them should sign him. They have terrible quarterbacks throughout the league, and they won't do it. But what did Trump just do? He took those billionaires, a lot of them who had not only publicly said they voted for him, but had given him millions of dollars, and just told you to leave their businesses, to hurt their businesses. You're such an idiot. You took natural allies and turned them into enemies. That's all he ever does, day in, day out. And by the way, he keeps telling people, that they should take action if he doesn't agree with their political point of view. He is the government. He's the president of the United States. When asked who's his favorite Supreme Court justice, after he first said Judge Judy, he didn't, but almost. He first said that he was thinking about putting Judge Napolitano from Fox News on the bench. Anyway, when pressed later, he said, Antonin Scalia. Antonin Scalia is my favorite justice. Well, let's go to a quote from Antonin Scalia. He's obviously deceased now. But this is what he had said about this issue. He said, if I were king, I would not allow people to go around burning the American flag. However, we have a First Amendment which says that the right of free speech shall not be abridged, and it is addressed in particular speech critical of the government. That was the main kind of speech that tyrants would seek to suppress. So, here we go again, a tyrant trying to suppress speech that he does not like. Now, that was not well enough, so he decided that he's going to tweet on the issue. Here comes Trump more. He says, if a player wants the privilege of making millions of dollars in the NFL or other leagues, he or she should not be allowed to disrespect our great American flag or country and should stand for the national anthem. If not, you're fired. Find something else to do. Again, making it a First Amendment issue when it previously was not. Before, it was about freedom of expression as a general principle. Now it's getting to be the government intimidating people into taking action against people because they did not like their political speech. That is exactly why we have the First Amendment, so the government cannot do that, so that tyrants cannot do that. Even the most conservative people in the country agree with that. Now, Donald Trump continues, courageous patriots have fought and died for our great American flag. We must honor and respect it, make America great again. He's just not letting it go. Now, this is now finally Sunday morning. So he started it Friday night. There's a lot of heat around it. He, of course, doubles down because that's all he ever knows what to do, right? And then he continues, sports fans should never condone players that do not stand proud for their national anthem or their country. NFL should change policy. Again, trying to dictate terms to them. So what happens on Sunday after Trump makes all those comments? Well, everybody starts sitting. Of course! So, we have players from all over. Let's start taking a look at the pictures here. Immediately, it starts in the Jacksonville Jaguars-Baltimore Ravens game. Now, let's pause here for a second, because that was the first game played. It was actually in London that it was being played. It was the first in the schedule, and that and the owner is Shahid Khan in the middle. The owner of the team, who gave a ton of money to Donald Trump, but now is standing with his team and locking arms in protest of Donald Trump and of the national anthem. They're locking arms during the national anthem. He turned the owners that had given him millions of dollars against him. I told you. He is so stupid. All right, let's keep going. All right, then that's the Ravens on the opposite side also taking a knee. This thing's on fire. That's the Jaguars locking arms. But also the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots. We got more on Tom Brady later in the show. He was part of that as well. Now that's the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, also locking arms with his players. He's now turning almost all the owners against him. The Giants on the opposite side playing the Eagles, also locking arms. The Chiefs not only locking arms, but raising fists, some of them. And by the way, Travis Kelce, the most prominent white player, now Brady as well, of course, but Kelce took a knee for the Chiefs. That's the Los Angeles Chargers taking a knee. The Lions both locking arms and taking a knee, so it is part of the same movement. The Falcons doing likewise in the same game. Now Rico Lavelle in that game sings the national anthem, takes a knee, and puts the fist up. So now it's spread to not just the players, but the people singing the anthem. He's not alone, more on that later. The Browns, likewise. Even the guys that are standing, locking arms oftentimes with the guys who are kneeling. Giants, Bills, Broncos, Saints sitting on the bench. That's another form of protest. Panthers, Buccaneers. Those are Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans, the two best players for the Buccaneers doing it. More owners. The Packers doing it. Aaron Rodgers is in there. The Bengals doing it. The Redskins. Even Daniel Snyder locked arms. Also another huge donor to Donald Trump. Oakland Raiders, Marshawn Lynch started sitting on the bench. A lot of the Raiders sitting on the bench there. Then, for the Seahawks-Titans game, neither side shows up. Neither the Seahawks or the Titans show up for the national anthem. They're both in. Then the guy singing the national anthem, the woman and the guy playing the guitar, they both take a knee while singing the national anthem. So everybody's doing it in that game, more from the Bears. And the Steelers are the ones who started staying in the locker room. I have more on that story later in the show. They come out only after the anthem is done. The Jets. And by the way, Ray Lewis, who is a Hall of Famer for the Baltimore Ravens in that first game with the Ravens and the Jaguars, also took a knee. And the reason why that's an interesting story, and there he is, he's of course retired now, is because Ray Lewis was a supporter of, or at least had gone to see Donald Trump. Let me read you two of the people from that game making the statement. Julius Thomas, tight end that used to be for the Jaguars, now with the Dolphins, had said in a tweet, quote, "This isn't the first time in this country where men and women with oppressive values tried to intimidate men and women with great courage to accept inequality. I will take a knee with my teammates until I see liberty and justice for all." So, great job by Thomas going further and explaining his stance. Then, HuffPost explains future NFL Hall of Famer Ray Lewis, who visited then-President-elect Trump in New York in December, also kneeled. In the past, though, Lewis has spoken against Kaepernick's protests. Now, the reason I tell you that part is because look at this. Another potential ally who had said Kaepernick was wrong, now swayed by Trump so much that he goes and joins Kaepernick and takes a knee along with his former teammates on the Ravens. So it goes on and on. Now, we go to the Seahawks. The Steelers were the first to not show up for the national anthem. And they put out a statement that they will not be doing that. Now, one of their players did come out, his former Army Ranger, and salute the national anthem. Everybody else stayed in the locker room. Then Seattle also stayed in the locker room and in a later game and put out a statement. The Seahawks players announced before the game at LP Field in Nashville, Tennessee, that they would not be participating in the national anthem, and they clarified, quote, "to protest the injustice that has plagued people of color in this country." So they wanted to make it clear this is not just for unity with fellow teammates, but it is to actually protest injustice and racial injustice as well. Now I want to go to statements from higher ups. So we go to the CEO of the Green Bay Packers, Mark Murphy. He says, "It's unfortunate that the president decided to use his immense platform to make divisive and offensive statements about our players and the NFL. We believe strongly that players are leaders in our communities and positive influences. They have achieved their positions through tremendous work and dedication and should be celebrated for their success and positive impact." And he went on to say also, "We believe that it is important to support any of our players who choose to peacefully express themselves with the hope for good. As Americans, we are fortunate to be able to speak openly and freely." So nice job, Donald Trump. There goes CEOs of football teams, and now finally to the owners. Robert Kraft, a good ally of Donald Trump, one who gave him a Super Bowl ring recently, gave him, I think, about $1 million for his campaign, and went to his inauguration. Even Kraft turns. Not only did he lock arms with his players, he said, quote, "I am deeply disappointed by the tone of the comments made by the president on Friday. I am proud to associate with so many players who make such tremendous contributions in positively impacting our communities. Our players are intelligent, thoughtful, and care deeply about our community, and I support their right to peacefully effect social change and raise awareness in a manner that they feel is most important." Thank you, Donald Trump. You gave Colin Kaepernick and all of us who believed in him and the stand that he was taking so much more allies, so many more allies, so much more momentum. No one could have done for this movement what Donald Trump did by buffoonishly attacking those folks in a way that turned almost everyone against him. Now, all of a sudden, you've got billionaires, Trump supporters, Trump voters, conservatives, and so many other folks that are now turning around and going, yeah, wait a minute, that is their free speech rights, right? And they should be able to speak freely. And wait, at some point, they might even turn around and go, wait, why is Colin Kaepernick not in the league? I mean, now that all of these players, hundreds of players, are taking the knee, why on God's green earth is Colin Kaepernick still not in the league? And my guess is that probably gets solved soon. Because now Trump has settled the debate. By going on the opposite side, he's gotten almost the entire country to at least understand and appreciate what Kaepernick is doing. And finally, after seeing all this, do you think Donald Trump is going to reverse position? Of course not! He's going to triple down. So he then tweets after the games, great solidarity for our national anthem and for our country. Standing with locked arms is good. Kneeling is not acceptable. Bad ratings. Oh. First of all, locking their arms is locking their arms against what you stood for. They're saying they stand with their teammates who are kneeling. He doesn't understand anything. And then what's his last line? Bad ratings. Don't care about principles. Got you. By the way, there's bad ratings because everyone's leaving TV. They don't have subscriptions to cable anymore. So it has nothing to do with anything else. Okay, and he says, the issue of kneeling has nothing to do with race. It's about respect for our country, flag and national anthem. NFL must respect this. The only way you can make it worse is to involve the government more and make it an actual freedom of speech issue. And now you have the president, the leader of the government, saying the NFL must respect this. When earlier he also talked about firing people, etc. And Roger Goodell says, divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities. He's, of course, the NFL commissioner. Now this is Donald Trump responding to Roger Goodell, saying, look, yes, take his ideas and go with what he wants. I think it's very disrespectful to our country. I think it's very, very disrespectful to our flag. In other words, meaning, he shouldn't be fired or anything. He's a white person in a position of power. So I just kind of disagree with him. The other guy should be fired, though. Okay. Interesting. If you turn the NFL commissioner against you when he was the guy that other folks were blaming for keeping Kaepernick out of the league, and you have screwed this up royally. Last thing, it is spread to other sports. Now you've got Bruce Maxwell, first player in the Major League Baseball to take a knee during the national anthem. This just happened, and he put out a statement saying, my hand was over my heart because I love our country. I've had plenty of family members, including my father, that have bled for this country. His father served in the Army for a long time. That continue to serve for this country. At the end of the day, this is the best country on the planet. My hand over my heart symbolizes the fact that I am, and I will forever be, an American citizen, and I'm more than grateful to be here. But my kneeling is what is getting the attention because I'm kneeling for the people that don't have a voice. And another Oakland A's teammate just said online that he'll be joining Maxwell in the next game in taking a knee. That teammate happens to be white. So, Donald Trump, we could not thank you enough. You have spread this protest to almost all the players, now to different sports, and to even billionaire owners of these teams. Kaepernick could not have done it better. We could not have done it better. So, thank you for being so incompetent, such a buffoon, and not understanding our country, what it stands for, and the flag, because it rallied the rest of us to fight for the true spirit of that flag, the true spirit of this country, which is to always, as the Constitution says, strive for a more perfect union, to hold our government accountable. And if there is racial injustice or injustice through police or anything else, we all fight to make it better. That's why Kaepernick took a knee in the first place, and that's why we all fight for that principle. Thank you for giving us all of these allies. If you like this clip of the Young Turks, you know there's a whole...
They're doing it right now.
At HostGator, nothing makes us more satisfied than helping customers succeed with their websites.
Make that website baby.
And we're one of the leaders in web hosting.
We want to serve your site too, Snappy. One bad motherfucker.
I actually was worried that I would not be able to find my dream job. That was the right commute, that was interesting technology, that was a position that I wanted. And then I came across this article about WhereSafe. They were working on developing this personal safety system that would make an impact in people's lives. I used LinkedIn to see how I might be connected to them. I knew someone who knew them. They asked me to come and interview and got a job offer by the end of that week. This seemingly random connection has turned out to be so beneficial, so positive. Conservative agitators were planning on something known as Free Speech Week at Berkeley. Now, the whole point of this was, of course, to get a little bit of attention and to rile students up who are not in favor of their brand of conservatism. And so Milo Yiannopoulos, who got fired from Breitbart because of his comments in favor of pedophilia, was basically the person behind this, organizing it. And the student organization that wanted to host these conservative speakers did not meet the deadlines necessary to provide security and the infrastructure necessary to host the event. So as a result, they ended up canceling the event because they couldn't have it indoors. They could only host it outdoors. Now, the event was canceled after Free Speech Week's organizers couldn't meet Berkeley's deadlines for renting indoor venues on campus. So Yiannopoulos has said that the university tried to sabotage Free Speech Week plans by making it difficult for organizers to make logistical arrangements. Now, Milo decided to still show up at Berkeley and do a brief speech outside on the campus, and it didn't go well. There was only a handful of people, and there were more counter-protesters, although the counter-protesters were incredibly peaceful. There were no issues here. One person did get arrested for having a weapon, but there were no physical issues or altercations or anything like that. Now, Dan from the internet, Dan Evans, who is someone who works here at TYT, interns here every once in a while, shared a video because he is a student at Berkeley and he decided to film everything to ensure that, the story didn't get twisted in the media. Well, there was one student wearing a MAGA hat who was apparently trying to anger the counter-protesters. He was yelling at them, attacking them, not physically, thankfully. And when Dan went up to him to ask him some questions, this is what happened.
Anything you talk about, Bob? Anything you talk about, yeah, I do. Really? The money's presenting people. Tell them what you actually believe. Talk about your stance. I'll tell you that. You're saying, this is my way. You're just dancing. You're seeing that somebody. Well, they won't let me talk. They won't let me talk. Well, then I'm trying to have a debate. Okay, then talk to me then. Okay, well, I mean, first of all, I think you can come here legally. Wait, you're young turds? Fuck that. Oh, really? You want to talk to me? Oh, we want to talk to me? Coward! 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 Coward!
There's so much to love about that video. First off, you are there for Free Speech Week. You're getting an opportunity to speak your mind. Why aren't you speaking your mind? What's the problem?
Yeah, that was so wonderfully ironic. She won't let me speak. All right, go ahead and speak. Okay, great. Oh, you were the young turks. Ah! Anyway, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this, a lot more people just saw you than the 3 people you were trying to talk to at that rally. Yeah. And so you would have had an opportunity right there to speak your mind and tell us all your brilliant right-wing ideas.
and instead you ran and ran and ran.
Right, and Dan even asked one of the counter protesters to stop chanting so we could hear him out, so we can actually hear his argument. He doesn't have an argument. He started with, I just think if you're in the country illegally, he couldn't finish his thought. And so you think he didn't see the TYT, logo on Dan's clothing before he started talking? Of course he saw it. But once he realized he couldn't finish his thought, he's like, oh, you're with the young turds, F you, and he walked away. Just try to formulate your opinion before you get involved in this type of activism.
But this reminds me of a piece from Slate that we talked about on last week's show, where a reporter went up and asked all these people who were like, no, freedom of speech, I just want freedom of speech. Okay, first of all, they want freedom of speech for Kaepernick? No, he should be fired. Anyway, but put that aside for a second. I just want freedom of speech. And then so the reporter asked, okay, great, then speak to me. What is it that you would like? And they're like, I don't want to talk to a reporter. You know why? It's not that you're worried about freedom of speech. You know that your opinions are unpopular. You know that you're going to say things that are going to get you in trouble. Why are they going to get you in trouble? Because there's thought police? No, because you're going to say loathsome things and people are going to go, wow, you really believe that? That's a pretty terrible thing to say about other people. If you didn't think it was terrible, you thought it was wonderful, why wouldn't you share it with a camera?
Right, exactly. And look, I think the way this whole free speech week went down was perfect, because think about it, Milo still appeared, okay? His fans knew about it, they could have went over there to see him, and only about a dozen people showed up.
Oh, so sad.
And so here's what would have made it 100 times worse. First of all, Miles was like, oh, it was a great success. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Right? 12 people came to see you. It was a great success. But it would have made matters worse, and he would have gotten what he wanted if people met him with violence, right? If people got up in arms. Look, protesting is fine, and I'm glad that the protesters kept it peaceful. The chants are fine. It's all good, right? But once you start throwing Molotov cocktails and damaging property and doing things like that, you are playing right into what they want. That is the exact response that they want. I mean, this was embarrassing for Milo.
What did we tell you from day one? Just let them speak and a dozen dudes will show up. That's exactly what almost happened here. Look, of course you do any protest you like, and God bless your heart, we love protests, but for them, they want the protests. He's an insignificant figure that no one in America, even the most loathsome right-wingers, won't hire. So just let him go out there with his 12 buddies, and the next time it'll be 7, and the next time it'll be 3, and it'll be wonderfully embarrassing. Don't worry, we'll send Dan from the internet. We'll record it. You'll get to laugh at him afterwards. Help us build independent media together. tytnetwork.com/join.
It's so cool.
Hey, Bree!
No, yeah.
To the house? To the car? Come in, honey, into some gold. Put in the good, and the good will grow. Good goes around and around and around. Good goes around and around.
The situation in Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria is dire, to say the least. Things have gotten so bad that people are looting and the streets have become extremely unsafe. As a result, authorities in Puerto Rico have started a curfew, and anyone who breaks that curfew will face jail time. Now, there's no electricity, there's no light, and so after dark, that's when the looters come out, that's when people commit crimes. But many in Puerto Rico are saying that the authorities are going after those who are not following through with the curfew rather than those who are looting. One person who owns a gas station says that his store has been completely destroyed. It'll cost about $17,000 just for it to be up and running again. And another issue that I'm noticing is the response by the U.S. government for those who are suffering from the storm in Puerto Rico has been much slower than the response that we saw in Texas and also in Florida. So if you take a look at these photos, it's just terrible. The flooding is extremely bad. And as I mentioned in earlier reporting, one of the dams was expected to fail. So as a result, about 80,000 people were evacuated from their homes. But yeah, it's just not good.
So, more amazing facts. 100% of the power grid was in ruins. Landline phones do not work at all, and the main TV stations had gone off the air. And they were expecting to be in a blackout for 4 days, because that's what the government warned it ahead of time. And on the 5th day, little had improved. Part of the reason that the governor then couldn't say anything is, one, the power's out, so nobody can get messages from the governor in the way that they are used to. Number two, his communication was out, so he couldn't communicate with many parts of Puerto Rico. So this is, in a lot of ways, as bad as it gets. And instead, we all are, including myself, talking about the NFL and taking a knee, etc., throughout the weekend and today. And so, unlike Trump and the federal government, we actually care about Puerto Rico, so we're also covering this story. And we talked about it on Friday's show. It's a strange thing, proximity. The closer you are to home, the more people care. So this is per capita, and for the folks in Puerto Rico, worse than what happened in Houston, worse than what happened in Florida, Harvey or Irma, but yet it's not on the mainland, and Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, but it's in a weird gray zone.
Right.
So cameras aren't really there. I mean, barely. We've got some pictures and video there. Is it wall-to-wall coverage? Come on, you know it's not wall-to-wall coverage. You know that the NFL issue that Trump brought up got 1,000 times more coverage. And so that's on all of us. That's on the media for going, Puerto Rico, even though they're in really, really bad shape now and can use the help. And then it's on also, look, there's some wonderful organizations that are working to get them help. But at the same time, all the people that are doing, giant drives to help people of Houston and Florida, which is wonderful, by the way, well, they should also do it for Puerto Rico. And again, some of them are. And look into efforts to help Puerto Rico in any way you can. And we'll try to put some in the description box of this video. And then, of course, most importantly, the people who have all the money, which is the government.
There needs to be a better federal response to the devastation in Puerto Rico, and that just hasn't been the case. So let's quickly go to graphic 14 and hear from the governor. Ricardo Rosello says that he called on the Pentagon to provide more help. He said there were helicopters and planes nearby that they need to be allowed to use. He was quoted as saying, whatever relief package we have, whatever impact we have, we are U.S. citizens, we shouldn't be the lesser for it. And so he certainly feels like the response by the U.S. government hasn't been equal compared to what other states dealt with when it came to these extreme storms. And again, the damage done in Puerto Rico is in some ways worse because of the lack of communication, the lack of power. The power grid is completely out. It got so bad that 13 prisoners escaped a prison. Luckily, they were able to find about 8 of them, but there are still several on the loose. And it's become incredibly unsafe, which is why people are forced to go indoors as soon as it's dark outside. And so it's just terrible. And I don't even think people realize that Puerto Ricans are Americans. It is a U.S. territory. So even if it doesn't feel like, it's part of the U.S. because it's not part of our mainland, it's still human lives that we're talking about. And, I think Donald Trump's tweets over the weekend in regard to this whole NFL situation not only uncovered, what his priorities are, but it was also done to kind of distract from bigger things that are happening, right? The healthcare debate that's happening. The fact that Republicans were trying to sweeten the deal for Alaska senators and other senators that were holding out on voting yes. Like, that's a big story. The Russia investigation, that's a big story. Trump wanted to distract from that. And it's all about selfish reasons. It's all about selfish, egotistical Donald Trump, as opposed to being a leader and looking out for people who are really suffering right now.
Well, look, I just don't think he cares about them. That's the other part of it.
Of course he doesn't.
I don't think that he's sophisticated enough to think, look, I'll do a distraction here because I don't want people to focus on climate change. It's obviously real. It's making these storms so much more severe. Look at what's happened with Irma, Harvey, and Maria, let alone Jose and the others. No, he just thinks, hey, I'll go to Alabama and rile up a crowd against Kaepernick. Gee, I wonder why. And it's like, I don't think he consciously thinks it's just Puerto Ricans. I don't really care about them. I just think that he shows it in what he does.
He might consciously think that.
Yeah. No, my point is that either way,
Yeah.
he doesn't care about you. And he's not, the cavalry is not on its way. And he's not focused on it. He doesn't put out a statement. It's like what we saw when a mosque is attacked. Doesn't care, doesn't put out a statement. If it's a Muslim doing the attack, it's a national emergency, tweet after tweet. He does it immediately. He doesn't wait. In Charlottesville, neo-Nazis attack. He waits and waits and waits and waits. And he says, I like to get all my facts first. You know, and so in the case of Puerto Rico, you know, put it aside. Look, Charlottesville's super important, and all those different kinds of attacks against Muslims, by Muslims, all important. But this is a U.S. territory that is decimated. It's a giant issue. And it seems like, certainly he hasn't done anything that makes us believe that he cares or knows or is in any way going to help. It's amazing. His indifference is stunning. If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Miami Dolphins safety Michael Thomas was asked about Donald Trump's statements in regard to those who refused to stand for the national anthem. And he got incredibly emotional as he talked about his family. Take a look.
I'm going to tell you my first thoughts, but it just amazes me with everything else that's going on in this world, especially involving the U.S. That's what you're concerned about, my man. You're the leader of the free world. It's what you're talking about. So, as a man, as a father, as an African American man, as somebody in the NFL, as one of those sons of bitches, you know, like, yeah, I took it personally, but at the same time, like I said in my Twitter post, it's bigger than me, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bigger than me. I got a daughter. She's gonna have to live in this world. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do to make sure, you know, she can look at my dad, look at her dad, and be like, hey, you did something, try to bring a change too. That's right. Like football coaches. You're good.
Yeah. So. Michael Thomas was one of the guys who originally took a knee. He took a knee last year along with Kaepernick. So he's one of the leaders in this movement. And so that's why when Trump said those sons of bitches who wouldn't stand for a flag, in a sense he was talking directly about Michael Thomas. I'm sure he doesn't know Michael Thomas. He probably heard about Kaepernick, but not about Thomas. But and it's a weird thing, the media. Like, you know, they get obsessed with Kaepernick. And I get it, and we've talked a lot about Kaepernick, but then other people take a knee and they're like, okay, whatever, that's just a secondary story, so we're not going to talk about Michael or Bennett or all these other guys who did it. Anyway, so that's why they were asking him, because if Trump was talking about anybody that's in the league, he was talking about this guy. And he had, what he referred to earlier there was, when he wrote on social media, this is bigger than us. Meaning, say that the idea of justice when it comes to police brutality and police violence against unarmed black men is an issue bigger than a football player. He's just trying to put a spotlight on it. And of course, because of Trump's overreaction, now this is spread like wildfire. We had the first baseball player take a knee just yesterday, I believe, last night. And now some of his white teammates said they're going to take a knee, or at least one of them said they're going to take a knee with him tonight. And it's spread to the owners, it's spread to everybody now, and God bless Michael Thomas for being one of the leaders in that. And of course, the most powerful part was when he was talking about his daughter. And if you didn't hear exactly what he was saying, because he broke up a little bit there, he said, you know, what if she asked me, Daddy, what did you do when it mattered, and did you try to make a change? And he did. And that's a hell of a thing to be able to tell your kids, when it mattered, I stood up, or in this case, took a knee.
Yeah, I think that, and by the way, this is speculation on my part. I have no idea what's going on in his head. But he kind of lost his composure when he started thinking about his family, when he started thinking about his daughter. And it made me realize something I've always known, but I think sometimes we forget about it. Everyone wants the same thing, regardless of what your ethnic, background is, regardless of where you live in the country or what your political affiliation is. We all want a better world for our families. And the world that he sees is one where, his peers are murdered in an unjustified way without, any weapons on them, without any wrongdoing, or with some wrongdoing, but certainly nothing that warrants extrajudicial killings, right? And so he wants a better world for his kids, for his family. And I'm sure seeing the kind of stuff that you see in the news on a regular basis worries him just as much as it worries us. So
yeah, no, and worries him probably more because we don't have African American kids, and so yes, it's now happening to all the races, and I think police overreaction, police training is wrong, unfortunately, throughout the country. But if you see Tamir Rice being shot in 2 seconds flat when he was 12-year-old African American kid, and you got a 5-year-old daughter, as he said, and one day soon she'll be 12, and and if nobody's going to bother asking her anything, and they're just going to pull up and shoot her,
yeah,
boy, you would be very, very concerned. So just for 1 second, think about if you were in their shoes, if you're not African American, and you see another story in Ohio, a guy in a Walmart walking around with a toy gun from the Walmart because he was shopping. Cops come up, also shoot within 2 seconds. They don't ask questions, and boom, he goes down and he dies. And it's happened over and over again, and yes, the statistics bear out that it happens disproportionately to African Americans. So we've got to get better police training. We can't have them shooting at first sight, and now, you see it happening to all the races, but more so to African Americans. And so if you're an African American like Michael Thomas, it might be a matter of life and death for you or for your kids to take a stand now. And so he did so bravely all the way back to last year when it was a very unpopular thing to do, at least according to the press. And he took that chance, and now a lot of people have joined him, and that's what bravery is all about. Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. tytnetwork.com/join.
Back during the election, and Tom Brady, who is, of course, the quarterback for the New England Patriots, seemed to be supportive of Donald Trump. In fact, he had a Make America Great Again hat in his locker, which he has slowly but surely tucked away. And now, recently, he decided to talk about Donald Trump's statements in regard to NFL players who refused to stand during the national anthem. He was on the Kirk and Callahan show, and here's what he had to say about Trump's comments to those who refused to stand.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with, what he said, and thought it was just divisive, and, like I said, it's, I just want to support my teammates, and I always said I'm never one that says, oh, that's wrong, or that's right, or that's, but I do believe in what I believe in, and I believe in bringing people together and respect and love and trust, and those are the values that my parents instilled in me, and that's how I try to live every day. And I've been blessed to be in a locker room with guys from all over the United States over the course of my career. Some of my great friends are from Florida, Virginia, New York, Montana, Colorado, Texas. I think one thing about football is it brings so many guys together, guys that you would never have the opportunity to be around, whether it was in college and all the way into the pros. And we're all different, and we're all unique, and that's what makes us all so special.
So he was also asked about those who agree with Trump and actually disagree with those who refuse to stand for the national anthem. And here's what he had to say about it, and I totally agree with him. I think everyone has the right to do whatever they want to do. If you don't agree, that is fine. You can voice your disagreement. I think that is great. It's part of our democracy. As long as it is done in a peaceful, respectful way, that is what our country has been all about. At least that's what our country is supposed to be all about. So I thought those were some interesting statements, and I was more curious to read what his fans had to say about his comments, because a lot of his fans are Trump supporters who are enraged about NFL players not standing for the anthem, and they think he's sold out. I don't know who he sold out to, but apparently you can't have a disagreement without selling out somehow.
To Elizabeth Warren. That's who he sold out to. The senator from Massachusetts. Massachusetts is one of the most liberal states in the country. That the Patriots are obviously from that general area, and so that's the problem, right? The right wing fans are given so much more of a voice. So people are like, oh, the fans don't want Kaepernick. Wait a minute, a lot of the fans do want Kaepernick, but they never get anywhere near the coverage.
Right.
There's Kaepernick's jerseys were selling like crazy, etc., but that didn't get. If you're a right-winger, though, you have more privileged voice. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that an overwhelming percentage of Massachusetts agrees with Tom Brady's latest statement, which, by the way, was not that bold. It's not like he was saying, oh, yeah, Kaepernick is right. It's not like he was saying, yes, there is police brutality. He said, you could even argue that it was milquetoast. I have a lot of friends from all over the country because I've played sports with them. In other words,
right.
I have black friends and white friends and Latino friends, right?
His strongest statement was, I certainly disagree with what he said. That was his strongest statement, and of course an argument can be made that was milquetoast, that wasn't a strong statement. But coming from someone who supported Trump and had a MAGA hat in his locker, I think it's important for him to speak out, because right now I feel like there is this need to support your candidate regardless of what he or she does, and that's crazy. It's okay to criticize someone that you supported, a politician that you like. You are supposed to hold them accountable, and look, regardless of where you stand on the national anthem debate, you have to at least acknowledge that it's unacceptable for a president to refer to individuals who are practicing their First Amendment rights sons of bitches. That is insane.
Now, look, I don't mind the vulgar language. It is a weird thing for the president to do it. And to me, the much worse part, and I think what begins to trigger actual First Amendment issues, is when the leader of the government says that somebody should be fired for what they said.
Yes.
And so when Brady says, I definitely disagree with what he said, it's not that bold a statement either, because he's saying, should his some of his fellow players, be fired and be called sons of bitches for what they're doing? It'd be a little crazy for him to go in the other direction and go, oh, Trump is right. I think a bunch of players in the NFL should be fired for speaking their mind. Mm-hmm. That would be an unbelievable statement. So, Trump put himself in a position where he couldn't win. He turned everyone against him, because saying that their teammates should be fired means that all the players have to support Kaepernick. Whereas before, not a lot of them were supporting him, right? And he turned the coaches against him, he turned the general managers against him, and then he even turned the owners against him, because then he started saying people shouldn't go to the games, and the owners are like, whoa, that's not cool. So now they all disagree with his statements, because he's too stupid to make a rational argument even for his own side. So, look, and for the people who think that Brady was milquetoast there, that's the issue I brought up. I hear you, but he also has a right to be milquetoast. I'll take it.
He's not. Look, it would be one thing if he was this politically outspoken athlete, and then this situation occurs, and he has a very mild statement, mediocre statement. But he doesn't. Look, I don't know too much about Tom Brady, to be fair, but he doesn't strike me as someone who engages in political discussions on a regular basis.
No, having that hat was the most political thing he'd ever done.
Right.
So, and look, and if you're LeBron James and Tamir Rice gets shot in Cleveland, and then the cops double down about it, that's a moment where I was hoping that LeBron James would do something more political and stand up for justice. Now, as it turns out, belatedly, in my opinion, LeBron has done a lot more now, and he's also now supporting Steph Curry and the Warriors, etc., against Trump. He's done a wonderful job recently, so he's become a little bit more political. But you're right, Brady has never been that guy, and so for him to come out and say Trump was definitely wrong, for a lot of folks, that's a big deal. So, hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So, God bless, wonderful. I'm glad to see him sharing his opinion, an opinion that is hard to disagree with.
Right.
And lastly, I like that little reference that Anna made. It's very sly. How he tucked away the hat, like the tuck rule. Right, Anna?
Yeah, totally. See, I know stuff. I don't know what the tuck rule is. That was a total accident.
Of course!
What's the tuck? Don't even tell me. I don't care. Yeah.
Long story.
Does it have to do with the jock strap? Is that the tuck rule?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, just ask any Raiders fan what the tuck rule is. If you like this clip of the Young Turks, you know there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. TYTnetwork.com/join.